with the first pick.
Thunderstruck! Thunderstruck! Yeah, Thunderstruck!
Welcome into the Fantasy Rant podcast presented by Stadium Rant. Check out Stadium Rant on YouTube and all the social media platforms for tons of great content. I am your host, Dan Baker, joined by Evan Gooding and Lee Cook, here to talk some Dynasty today. We are going to go all differences in our Dynasty rankings. It's the Dynasty Disparity episode. We're going to, put some guys on the hot seat, see what they have to say about the players that they are defending. So really, we try to get a little bit at each position. I'll give a quick overview of the players we're going to be talking about today. Sam Howell, Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Swift, Rashee Rice, Curtis Samuel, and David Njoku. If we have time, there's two players that we were talking about and ended up all having a similar consensus ranking on. So we might have time to get to that. We'll see at the end of the episode. But let's dive straight into it. We got the first player we are talking about, Sam Howell, on the board. Obviously, one of us here, probably a big fan of him a year or two ago. Of our rankings, I am higher than consensus on Sam Howell. Lee, you said that you're like with consensus, but you do consider him a buy cheap candidate. And then Evan, you are lower on Sam Howell. Evan, kick it off. Of the three of us, you're the one who's a little bit lower. So, guy gets shipped off to Seattle in a trade. Don't send too much to go and acquire him. But why don't you like the either situation or the talent of Sam Howell? What are you seeing here?
I mean, I don't mind the talent, actually. I think he's a pretty talented guy, which, is really off-putting because he's already at such a low ranking right now, and I have him lower. But I don't see too much of an opportunity here for him. I don't think that Seattle traded him to be the guy of the future. I think they traded him to be a just-in-case guy, and I'm really not trying to hold a lot of those guys on my roster. And do I think Sam Howell could be something if given the right opportunity? Yes. But I don't see that opportunity here in Seattle. And if things don't go well and they end up starting him over Geno this year, and things continue to not go well, they're drafting another quarterback. And then how good is Sam Howell at that point? So I don't see it for him. Like I said, I do like some of the talent. He's got some arm talent too, but he could be a buy cheap. It's a risky play. Like none of us really know what's going to happen, but I just see the path to success is a little bit of a rocky road for him.
I think that's fair enough. The road is definitely rocky. It's not just smooth sailing for Sam Howell. However, they did go out and acquire him in a trade. It's not just a guy that was sitting there on free agency or in free agency that they're like, okay, we can pick him up for cheap. Like they traded up or traded back in the draft essentially to go out and acquire him. Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was they traded away a third to get a fourth and traded away a fifth to get a sixth, and
That's
then
right.
acquired Howell. Yeah.
It's meaningful draft capital. I mean, it's not paying a ton, but it is meaningful.
Right, it's not a ton, but they went from a day 2 pick to a day 3 pick, and then I believe the move back from the 5th to the 6th was like 50 picks or so in the draft with all the compensational draft picks at the end there. So
let's not forget he's a 5th-round pick himself. So
right. So that's a considerable amount to trade for him. I remember us talking about that at that time, being impressed with what the Commanders were able to get out of that trade. Especially there's a lot of positives and negatives when you look at Howell's game. The guy can spread the ball around. And one of the things, even as much as I love Terry McLaurin, and I do think that Dotson is much better than his numbers has shown through his first 2 years, it's undeniable that the Seahawks have a better wide receiver core as a whole. So when you got a guy that just wants to spread the ball around, and you got Metcalf, Lockett, JSN, like all of those guys are going to do a little bit more than expectation with the ball in their hands. And those guys also get open at a pretty high rate. So Geno Smith right now, obviously ahead of him. He is under contract through 2025. But his cap hit after this season, $38.5 million with a dead cap of just 13.5. $25 million cap savings. And that's not like post June 1st or anything. Like they can just move on from after the season if they choose. So after this season, I really think that Howell's opportunity opens up. Still has another 2 years on a very cheap rookie contract. He'll definitely be in Seattle throughout that time. And then on top of it, Howell added a little bit on the ground. Towards the end of the season, I feel like he felt the pressure of, trying to prove himself, trying to keep his starting role, not just this season, but into the future. I felt like he got maybe a little bit over aggressive, kind of trying to prove himself, because in his last 7 games played, he threw 12 interceptions. Pretty bad. He had on the season 21 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. Not great when you look at it from that standpoint. However, he did make up for those, those points that he lost on the ground. He ended up, let's see here, I just had it. Where is it? Okay, 263 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. That would give him 56 fantasy points through just that. And then he would have had 42 points lost in interceptions. So if you're concerned about the interceptions, know that generally that leads to more passing yards as the team needs to catch up in the game, a la Jameis Winston with the Saints a few years back. And then also, he makes up for it on the ground. He's a gritty dude. And then really quick, actually, last point, he had 277 dropbacks under pressure. That was the most in the NFL by 24 more than the closest quarterback. Even with facing that much pressure, he had a 51.6 completion rate. That was good for 8th in the NFL with a minimum of 100 dropbacks versus pressure. The only QBs ahead of him, we're going to never mind this one name, but Bailey Zappi. After that, CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Brock Purdy, and Dak Prescott. Very solid names to be around. Also had the 4th most passing yards against pressure. And we all know that, Washington's line wasn't elite, to say the least. Seattle's isn't either. But I do think between the wide receiver talent there and, just like maybe a slight step up in the offensive line situation, I think that he could really prove himself at least by next year if he doesn't get an opportunity this year.
Yeah, so, you kind of touched on a couple of things. To me, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Fumbles were an issue as well. Out of those interceptions, a lot of them, just being a fan and watching every game, a lot of them felt like they were at the worst possible time in the red zone, trying to do too much. There was a particularly awful one against the Eagles. I think it was the second game, but there were a lot of bad ones. Eric Bieniemy, as the offensive coordinator and sole play caller, was not good. There were some highs there, but they threw the ball more than any other team in the league with a first-year starter and the worst offensive line or one of the worst offensive lines in the league. And a lot of those weren't quick passes, bubble screens, quick slants. A lot of it was 5-step drops, and you're really hanging the kid out to dry. So it's kind of that thing. So some of his numbers and some of the fantasy goodness were because of how much they threw the ball. But then, a lot of the mistakes were there as well. They did not protect him at all with the running game, the play calling, the offensive line. I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of talent there. He has all the arm talent in the world. The footwork has to improve, the pocket presence, but ultimately just the protection scheme. If you get him in the right scheme and get him better protection, I think he's a starting quality quarterback in the NFL. Looking at Fantasy Pros, they have him as the 3rd-rated backup. He's 34th overall. The only backups in front of him are Justin Fields and Michael Penix Jr. as far as Dynasty rankings. And I think that's right about where he should be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To me, he's a buy target from beyond everything I just said. I'll be honest. I think Geno Smith stinks. I don't think. I think Geno Smith. He had the one breakout year. It was a magical season two seasons ago, and he came back to be kind of what we remembered. Not writing him off. I know he didn't write back anyway, but he's just a guy. He's just a guy. He's if you put him in a perfect situation, I think Geno would be the best backup in the league. But I don't think he's a starting quality quarterback. And I would disagree a little bit with Evan. I think there's so much. Seattle has a lot of talent. I don't see them drafting high enough to really get – there's not a ton of quarterbacks in this next draft. I would be very surprised if Howell didn't get a chance this year. But, I mean, they're going to see him in practice for a whole season, teach him the offense. I mean, the one big concern for me as well, just talking about offensive coordinator, you've got a first-time NFL offensive coordinator from University of Washington, Ryan Grubb. Who knows how he's going to adjust to the pro game. Surely he's going to run the ball more than Eric Bieniemy did last year with Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet back there, but we'll see. I honestly think he is a more talented quarterback than Geno Smith. So the buy lows, to me, you can get a backup price on a quarterback who I would be surprised if he didn't start at least 6 to 8 games this season.
Yeah, and the draft pick was one other thing I was also going to bring up. I do think that this team is good enough to finish middle of the pack, maybe threaten for a potential wild card spot. But this year they were the 16th pick. We saw 6 quarterbacks go in the top 12. If they really wanted a quarterback to replace Geno, they could have moved up, 4 to 6 slots and grabbed the guy, not maybe the guy that they wanted, but a guy if they believed in him over Geno. So I definitely agree with that take. I just think that the opportunity's there, the talent around him is there, and it's pretty solid overall offense along with the running game. They're going to keep the ball moving. All right, let's get to our next player. Unless Evan, you had any rebuttals or anything?
I mean, we'll see. I kind of agree with you guys with he's got the running talent there too. He's got some potential, but he's no Justin Fields, and I'd almost argue that he's a lesser Gardner Minshew, and I'm low on Gardner Minshew too. So I just the only thing he's really got for him right now for me is his age.
There's a kind of a similar vibe in there with Gardner.
Who would you guys rather have? Who would you guys rather have as your starting quarterback?
I'll take Howell, even though I think Gardner's going to start at least 10 games this season. I think I'll take Howell.
I think the biggest thing there is we know what Gardner Minshew is. Right. I mean, he might have that Geno Smith season somewhere along the line where all the stars align and, it's his lucky year, if you will, and everything works. But Gardner is a really good backup in the NFL. He's not a starting quality quarterback. We don't know yet about how. He's only started one season, and again, Eric Bieniemy did him no favors.
I don't think either are. I think Ritter's better than Howell too.
Ooh,
I almost put my beer all over the computer.
I was going to say you go spit take on that one. That's I definitely disagree with that. And honestly, I think that Howell's a better overall quarterback than Justin Fields, but we're talking fantasy and that rushing upside. You can't trump that. So I would still put Fields ahead of him as far as backups go, also in a very similar situation, but even with less commitment to their starting quarterback right now. So,
I mean, the path is definitely clearer for Sam than Ritter. So that's why Sam is going to be higher than my rankings. But
Ritter may not be the backup. Clayton Tune may beat him out to be the backup in Arizona.
Yeah. We'll see.
All right, really quick before we move on to our next player here, I had 3 players lined up, Sam Howell or this guy in Dynasty. Sam Howell or Daniel Jones?
Daniel Jones.
I think I would go Sam Howell. I would want to get some plus on in a trade. I would want to get a little more if I was trading away Jones, but
for sure.
I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be a starter past week 6 or 7. I think Drew Lock's taking his job, and again, the stars aligned for one season. I don't think Daniel Jones is very good at football.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like Daniel Jones is probably actually Sam Howell is a pretty old prospect, so they might be similar in age. But we've seen Daniel Jones. He's trash. I don't think he's going to be a quarterback. Also, not put in a great situation. To be
Yeah,
fair, to the guy.
name his best receivers to throw to. Name them.
Now Malik Neighbors, probably.
Yeah,
Like
who hasn't
legitimate.
played on the snap yet for the team?
No, exactly. I'm here with you. Their biggest signing in the last 5 years at the wide receiver position was Kenny Galladay, who gave them 0 games, not even seasons, 0 games of worth. So,
I mean, people
I'm there with you, but
people
I
are
do think that
shooting
Daniel Jones is pretty hot garbage. I don't really see him having a future, especially when teams have seen, what he can do. If teams are already moving on from Justin Fields, there's no reason why they'd be sticking around for Daniel Jones. Justin Fields has all of the same skill sets, but plus 1 or 2, Sam Howell or Aaron Rodgers?
If I'm winning now, I'm taking Rodgers for a season. Obviously,
Right.
If I don't think I can win the championship this year, again, I feel like I could trade Rodgers and get Howe in a second, maybe. Rodgers in a second for Howe and a first, for somebody that's win now. So it kind of depends on your team situation, your makeup.
Yeah, that is like a really case by case scenario, that type of one, because like I said, the road is rocky for Sam Howell, but it's still a road. He's got a road. So if he ever becomes a starter for a team again, I'd trade him. Like I would rather him over Aaron Rodgers any day at that point. But
Right.
it's a risk. So would
So
you
let's
take
say-
a starter for a year or two, or take a shot at the long term? Depends on where you're at with your team.
Let's say that your team has finished it, like you have just snuck into the playoffs the last 2 years. Maybe you got a 3rd place finish, a 2nd place finish, but you know that your team more than likely not going to win the championship, but you're going to be in the playoffs. You take the risk and hope that Rodgers puts you over the edge, or do you take Howell and
Who are my other quarterbacks?
What'd you say?
Who are my other quarterbacks?
Just for sake of argument today, let's take some mid-tier guys. We'll go like Dak Prescott and Trevor Lawrence are your other 2.
In that case, I'd take Rodgers, and that both of those guys I see having pretty decent long-term value. Dak less so for sure than Trevor Lawrence, but
doesn't have that contract.
Yeah, if it was somebody, if you had like a Russ Wilson and shoot, I don't even know who another good example of this would be, and Kirk Cousins, then I would take the Sam Howell route.
So I would do the opposite of what you just said, Evan, because if Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins, like I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers. For one, and everybody's philosophy is different. If I've made the playoffs the last 2 seasons, as long as my top players didn't retire or completely have blowout knees and torn Achilles and sorry Nick Chubb, that type of injury, you can win. All you have to do is make the playoffs, and you can absolutely win in a single week playoff format, which we most all play at this point. So if you're in the playoffs, I feel like until you're not, I'm trying to win it all, and Rodgers is probably going to be my guy either way, honestly. But if I were just outside the playoffs, if I had, I don't know, let's say I had Nick Chubb was one of my top running backs. I'm trying to think of another receiver that, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen are my wide receivers. I'm going to start rebuilding.
Okay. No, yeah. And I also would go Howell in this instance over Rodgers, just from a, pure baseline, not trying to weigh in on win now versus, rebuilding. Last name I'll bring up real quick. Let's try to hit this one a little bit quicker. We got Sam Howell or Russell Wilson?
Sam Howell.
Sam Howell.
I'm Sam Howell as well. All right, guys, let's get into the next one here. We have Josh Jacobs. Of the few of us, I was lower on him. Lee, in a similar sense, said he's pretty much with consensus think that he is a buy now candidate for win now teams, which I do think is understandable. And then Evan, you said you are higher on him. I'll lead it off this time. Josh Jacobs, I have him lower right now. His ADP is RB14 according to Fantasy Pros, and in one QB formats, it is 43rd overall. Really wish they had some super flex rankings in there. Fantasy Pros, if you're listening, get that going. But so the reason I'm lower on him, he did just get a nice little bag there, but most of it's front loaded. Last season, 4.0 yards per attempt. Oh, I'm sorry, 4.0 yards per attempt in 3 of the last 4 seasons. Last year, it was 3.5 yards per attempt, by far the worst of his career. Also, only caught 37 receptions of his 52 targets. That is an insanely low 71% reception rate, and only insanely low because he's a running back. Generally, like I'm going through all of my projections for all of the teams right now. So far through 16 teams, haven't really seen a running back at that 71% mark or lower. Most of the time, they are 80 to 88%. So that's pretty abysmal for a guy that was considered a pass catching running back at one point. Also, 2.35 yards after contact. That was 46th of 49 qualifying quarterbacks. Minimum was 100 rushing attempts. Again, he got 233 attempts on the season, so well beyond that. Then on top of it, you go, okay, maybe it's just the situation. Maybe it's a bad offensive line, not creating a lot of room before initial contact. Zamir White steps in for the last 4 games of the season. Over that time, Zamir White averaged 21 rushing attempts for 99.25 yards. That's 4.72 yards per attempt, more than 1.2 above what Josh Jacobs was doing. Also threw on another 3.25 targets, 2.25 receptions, 15 receiving yards. That was good for 14.1 points per game in half PPR formats. Josh Jacobs, during his first healthy 12 weeks, and I took out week 14 where he didn't have the same snap percentage, 13.1 point per game in half PPR, a lot more opportunities inside of the red zone that kind of boosted his value with a few touchdowns there. And then on top of it, Josh Jacobs now on the Packers. The Packers bring in Marshawn Lloyd, who I do personally love, trying to leave my bias out of it. But I do think that, with the Marshawn Lloyd going in the 3rd round and then the immediate comments after the draft from Matt LaFleur, I'm a big believer you need to have multiple running backs to carry the ball. Another quote. Certainly, Josh has proven that he can, but I think in a perfect world, we'd be splitting those carries up between 2 and 3 backs, not just one. Straight from the horse's mouth. We've seen it in the past, too. It's always been Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, even when people are like, A.J. Dillon's so efficient. Why aren't you giving Aaron Jones more? And then we see why, because Aaron Jones goes down and gets injured. So coming off of a season where his stud got injured, and then he comes back and puts up insane numbers, I do think that is kind of instilled in the floor system anyways, and then going to be reinstilled in him that, we need to keep our starters healthy. We're going to keep them, not going to be that same workload that Josh Jacobs got in Las Vegas. It's just not going to be that. And then just to cap it off here, Josh Jacobs probably going to be safe from being cut or traded next year. He's got a cap hit of 11.3 mil with a dead cap of 9.3 in 2025. So that'd just be a 1.9-ish $1 million cap saving. Next year, though, after that, his cap hit goes from 11.3 to 14.6. Dead cap goes down from 9.3 to 6.2. Cap savings is $8.3 million. And that is one of those situations where if they waited until after June 1st, they would spread out their dead cap. It wouldn't all hit at the same time. It would be spread out over 2 years. It would still be roughly about that 9.3 mil, but it would be much more manageable when you're spreading it out over multiple seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So, Evan, you were the low guy on this. Do you want to take the rebuttal and then Lee can follow up?
Oh, yeah. No, I think you were the low guy. I'm higher, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. I'm the low guy after all of that argument. And I'm like, you were low.
No, But yeah, no, I totally agree with what you're saying too, and I have the mindset that this is going to be more of a split backfield, that they are going to like take some of the workload. Like he's not going to get the same workload he got last year, but he's still a great talent in my eyes. He's a bulldozing back, and this is a better offense as well than Oakland. Like they're probably going to score more points than Oakland did, and probably be in the red zone more than Oakland did. And I think that they're going to trust Jacobs with that as opposed to the rookie. I do love the rookie as well. I love Marshawn Lloyd, and I think that he will be, way more relevant in the future if Josh Jacobs does move. But if he does move, like you said, he's got dead cap that could cut him, whatever. He's going to another team. This is a guy that I see having 3 years left in the league. And when I'm looking at running backs from his talent perspective with 3 years left in the league, they're going to be valued as like a top and at least RB2, which is where he's at right now, RB14 on the rankings. So I'm a little bit higher. I think he's still in the running back 1 tier, but at the bottom end of it. And I still like his opportunity for not just this year, but going forward.
Lee, I'll let you add to that, and then I do have the dynasty rankings up for Fantasy Pros, and I'd be interested to see who Evan would have ranked ahead of it. Josh Jacobs ranked ahead of.
So yeah, I mean, to me, he's a guy who I think it's easy to forget. He was mostly lackluster up until 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, he got 340 carries, 53 receptions. He was very close to that Mendoza line of 400 touches for an NFL running back. I don't know the stat offhand, but there's not a lot of NFL running backs that come back the following season and do much after 400 touches. There's a few unicorns, but there's a lot of guys who 400 touches in a season for a running back is the end of their career, or they're never the same. He's going to be in the best offense he's been in his career. There's playmakers all over that offense. I will be interested to see what the breakdown is. I don't know if A.J. Dillon is just a completely forgotten man. I don't know how much Marshawn Lloyd comes in and takes immediately. They didn't really seem like they wanted A.J. Dillon back. It was kind of one of those things, was like he couldn't find another place to go. Don't know what Dallas was doing. Seems like he would have been a fit there. But, he's a guy who, outside that one season, he's been an RB2-ish and not much more. So are we really expecting that much of a jump in his 26-year-old season? 3 years, I think, is asking a lot. I mean, he may be in the league, but 3 years as a productive fantasy asset, I don't see. I think 2 seasons. I think even next year in that age 27 season, if you can get RB2 or flex productivity, you're probably doing pretty good. So again, kind of not to lean on this, but if you're a contender, if you're win now, I don't know that I feel like there's enough enthusiasm. The price may be too high, but if you can find a team that's rebuilding, maybe you can get a good price on him. I have a little bit of Lloyd. I do feel like Lloyd is a talent. If he can get the fumbles cleaned up, he could be a guy who's a starting, NFL running back for 3 to 5 years. But they did pay Jacobs. They ran Aaron Jones out of town. I think some of that was the injury concern, and Jacobs is coming off kind of injury riddled. Not a great year, but again, how does he recover from a year removed from almost hitting that 400 touch line? And to me, the offense is just so good. I think the biggest thing, I don't see them giving him the volume that he got 2 years ago, but the touchdown opportunity is going to be greater. I think he's a RB1-ish if he can score 12 touchdowns or more. That's something that, again, he's only done twice in his career. Oddly enough, he's never caught a receiving touchdown, and he's had a pretty good amount of catches. That's just a weird stat to me, but
no, it's one of the ones that I like. Remembering Deontay Johnson had the longest reception streak. This is one of those guys I'm kind of waiting to do it because, like you said, he's never had, other than his rookie season, never had less than 33 receptions. Has had 53 and 54 in 21 and 22, and like you said, no receiving touchdowns. I just got done projecting the Packers, and it was one of those things. I was like, ordinarily, I give this guy with this amount of receptions a receiving touchdown just based on the volume. But if it's never happened in 5 years, how am I gonna, start that off now?
Yeah. It's strange. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy I could go either way. I'm curious where Evan, any of the guys he would put. I don't think he's a definitive RB1. I think he's a solid RB2 for this season, and next season we'll see.
Yeah. So Evan, some of the guys that are listed ahead of Josh Jacobs, we have. Just tell me, you can list it just right as I'm going. Say whether you're higher or lower. Josh Jacobs is higher or lower than this guy. Pacheco.
Higher. Josh
You're
Jacobs.
high. Oh wow. James Cook.
Higher probably.
And Rashad White.
Yeah, higher.
Kyron Williams.
Lower.
Kenneth Walker.
Lower.
Okay, so the rest of them are going to be pretty evident then. Found that teetering line. What'd you say?
I'd take both of the first two guys. I would take Cook and Pacheco over Jacobs.
Same. White's a little bit more hard to predict for the future. I do think that
Cook was the toughest one there for me. Cook was the toughest one.
Yeah, I personally think I would have Josh Jacobs ahead of Rashad White, but I would definitely have him behind Cook and Pacheco. Some of the guys listed behind Jacobs that I would, at this point, have ahead of him: DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Brooks. I would put Trey Benson there. I'm very high on Trey Benson, admittedly, but I think that after this year, it's going to be nothing but bright lights for the kid. And then starts weaning off a little bit. I think that Joe Mixon's kind of in a similar situation. Mixon in a fantastic offense. I think that he's going to get fed. I don't think that Dameon Pierce is it, and they've seen that both with the new head coach and in the prior system. He just has not been efficient. So I would probably take Joe Mixon just a touch ahead of Josh Jacobs. Also, even though he got a slightly shorter deal, the deal is more friendly to the player than Josh Jacobs is. But let's move on to our next player here. We have DeAndre Swift. So of our rankings, me and Evan are higher than consensus for Swift, and then we have Lee as the lower guy. Lee, why don't you kick it off? What don't you like about DeAndre?
So he's a guy who's had a tough time, staying healthy. He did play 16 games last year, which was the first time in his career. He did have by far his best season, as a pro. He did break 1,000 yards for the first time rushing. Obviously, it's the first time he ever got more than 200 carries. Receiving, it wasn't quite what we had hoped it would be. The biggest thing for me is he's not in as good an offense, and there's more competition at running back for him. Kenneth Gainwell was really the only guy to take away touches in Philly. He was playing behind top 3 offensive line in the league. And again, there were really good weeks, but if you look at last year, he certainly was not a league winner. I mean, 1,050 yards, essentially 5 touchdowns with 39 for 214 and 1 more touchdown. I don't know where that ranks him in running backs. I don't know if you have that in front of you, but to me, that's a bit of a disappointment.
It was 23rd in half PPR.
I mean, so fringe RB2 and again, I mean, I know he had a ton of runs down to the 1 yard line. So
that's funny.
I'll factor that in.
The last note that I have is I have no stat to show this. But if you watched football, it's just the truth. There's just so many times where he had a decently long run, got shot down at the 1 yard line. Then Jalen Hurts with his 15 rushing touchdowns gets pushed in. Jason Kelsey clearing a hole and everybody else pushing on that booty.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's very likely last season is going to be his peak in fantasy production because of the combination of offense he was in and productivity. Now you go to a place with a rookie quarterback. Naturally, Chicago's going to be better than they were, but you've got three really high-end wide receivers. You've got a good tight end, and you have two running backs who are really solid players. Not blow you away, but Roschon Johnson, Khalil Herbert, both really solid guys. And DeAndre has an injury history. So if I'm the coaching staff, if I'm running the offense, you're not going to put too much on him. You're going to spread the ball around. That's kind of how their offense is built. The O-line should be better, but it's not Philly's O-line by any means. Roschon was a second-round pick, a third-round pick a year ago. To me, I know they gave him a good amount of money. Some of that, I thought they overpaid for him, to be honest. And I don't see – he is ranked at 16 on Fantasy Pros, and I just don't see it. To me, I mean, he's ahead of guys like Trey Benson you just mentioned, Javonte Williams. That's debatable. Ramondre, I don't think Gibson's going to take that much away. Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, Najee Harris for another year. Any of those guys I would take over DeAndre Swift for this season and honestly going forward.
So one of the things that I like about DeAndre, the age, 25.4 years old. B,
but you don't like Josh Jacobs being 26.
26.2 years old, and the coaching staff, man, it's like they very much split up the carries in Green Bay.
Had to get that little slight in there.
Yeah, snuck that in real quick.
Just real quick,
but no,
you said that, DeAndre has 593 career carries in the NFL. A lot of that's because of injury, but still. Josh Jacobs has 1,305. A little difference in the.
I feel like that's an argument in my favor.
It is, but I was just responding to Evan there.
Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah. That's right. Screw you, Evan.
I do actually. So I was waiting to bring this up too because I do have Swift higher than Jacobs.
That is very interesting. So I mean, at least you have them higher. You got them both higher than consensus. But yeah, so Swift last year, some of the behind the scenes metrics. I mean, this one's not behind the scenes, but again, minimum of 100 rushing attempts. Swift was 4.6 yards per attempt on the ground. That's 9 of 49 qualifiers. 43 missed tackles. That was 14th. 22 runs of 10 plus yards. That's 17th. 11 runs of 15 plus. That's 11th. He's never had less than 39 receptions in his 4 years playing. That is, even with the injury riddled seasons, and his lowest reception total was last year with the Eagles. We all knew it heading into it. A ton of us talked about how the Eagles had the lowest pass or target percentage to their running backs. Makes a lot of sense. When you're running that type of an offense where the quarterback can move, you also have 2 stud wide receivers, and then, a very solid tight end in Dallas Goedert. I think it made sense at that point. And a little teaser there. You like that, Lee? But no, yeah, we got even the years prior. So 63 targets in 2022. Swift missed a decent chunk of that season. He played 14 games, but he was playing a very small percentage of snaps. Long stretch from week 9 on, where he only had 2 games above 40% snap share. And they didn't have David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs on that squad at the time. So he was definitely being monitored because of the injury. On top of it, DeAndre Swift goes to the Bears. We talked about it. 3-year, $24 million deal. Might sound like a worse deal than Josh Jacobs got. However, for DeAndre Swift's deal next year, his cap hits $9.3 million compared to Josh Jacobs at 14.6. In 2025, he'll have a dead cap of $8.7 million. So that's roughly $600,000 in cap savings if they cut him after 2025. That's probably not going to happen. They signed him to this deal for a reason. They went out and made him the first free agent signed this year for a reason. They clearly wanted to bring him in. I think they wanted a guy with that pass catching skill set. And that kind of speaks to my next point. The Bears, they had the 9th highest target share to the running back position last season, and that's with Justin Fields. Justin Fields is the guy that will never just throw the ball away, take the check down. He's going to try to extend things to the max, hit the home run either through the air or with his legs. So that doesn't create great opportunity in passing to your running back. And yet the Bears were still 9th in the league in terms of target share to the running back. So I think that's something that Matt Eberflus, Eberflus, whatever his name is, is, intending to do with this team. Might change a little bit now that they have more than just DJ Moore at wide receiver and Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet. They bring in a couple of studs. I could see that number going down a little bit. However, I do think that there's going to be a good amount of passing volume to make Swift worth it, both on the ground and through the air. And then the last thing really quick, Khalil Herbert's on the last year of his deal. Roshan's solid. Don't get me wrong. I like Roshan a lot. I like his play style. I like the person. I don't think that he's going to be an RB1 in the near future and maybe ever in the NFL. I think he's a great running back too. I think that he is if you got the Lightning at your 1A, he's a great thunder to follow up with. Great between the tackles, but they do different things. And I think this team's going to pass a ton. Just with the move that they've made, it feels like they're telling us we want to throw the ball. DeAndre Swift, I think, is going to get a ton of targets this year.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I have him above Jacobs. Like, I do think that Jacobs is probably more well-rounded back than just a bigger, better guy. But Swift he's got that pass catching prowess that Jacobs doesn't possess right now, and I think that there's the competition's almost equal. Who would you guys rather have, Roshan or Marshawn Lloyd? For competition.
I'm personally higher on Marshawn for like my pre-draft take. I really, really like Marshawn. I think that he's just got the speed to go along with like contact balance, power through the gaps when you need it. He's not the guy. He's not going to run through an MFer's face like Marshawn Lynch once said. Man, wish we were after hours. Join us on YouTube for the after hours where we can say what we want. But yeah, not going to run through MFer's face. And, outside of that, though, I think Marshawn Lloyd has the ability to create those big plays along with
better too. I think Lloyd's better too. So he's got less competition than Jacobs as well from my perspective in terms of what they're going to eat away. I hope that there's just a time where Roshan can at least have a shot at being an RB1, because I do think that he has potential to shine there. I'm a Roshan holder. I like him as well. But this is Swift's backfield this year. He's going to dominate. And I think that this could be the year that he's never broken the top 12. I think he could break the top 12 this year.
Yeah.
See, I disagree. I don't. I think he has more competition than Jacobs. I think Jacobs is much more clear number one in Green Bay. I'm kind of discounting A.J. Dillon. I know you didn't bring him up, but I think he's a utility, a backup guy. He's had.
If they liked him enough, they wouldn't have added another running back.
Correct. Agreed. Right. And like I said, they didn't. He hung out there in free agency for a long time until he came back. So it was kind of one of those. Okay, the system. It's a very team-friendly deal. We always need depth at running back, so you can come back. But, I would rent and not buy if you haven't already bought type of deal. To me, one, Roshan, Herbert combined caught 54 passes last year. Chicago was very much a hot hand type of deal with Deontay Foreman. You didn't know who to start from week to week. All three of those guys had good games last year. I just, to me, I think you guys discount Khalil Herbert a little bit. He's not going to be an every week guy, but he's a guy who's shown he's an NFL quality running back. And when you have three guys, it makes it really tough in fantasy. And honestly, I think from a Bears perspective, the best thing for them as a team is to spread the ball around. DeAndre Swift could be a great weapon if you don't get him hurt and you use him sparingly. But the minute you try to give him a ton of touches, we've seen in the past what happens. And they have three quality backs, which to me, it makes it really tough for fantasy. We'll see what it breaks out. Khalil, I think, is gone probably after this season. So next season could be a different story. But again, I don't know. I don't know how good. The other thing I would say I think it's pretty clear the Green Bay offense is going to be better than the Chicago offense. Chicago may improve. And was it Shane Waldron is the offensive coordinator now? He had a good season in Seattle and a couple of seasons in Seattle. I don't think he'll be as bad as what's the offensive coordinator that was there is in Vegas now. I can't think of his name, but I know Justin Fields hated him, and Eberflus wasn't doing a lot with the offense, so we'll see. But I think there's too many mouths to feed, and that offense isn't going to be that good this year, especially for this season.
Right.
I don't think it's clear that the Bears are going to be better. I don't think it's clear. Like
the Packers are going to be better than the Bears.
I don't think it's clear. I think it's clear that that the Bears are going to be better than the Raiders, but I don't think it's clear that they're going to be better than. There's just a lot of unknowns there that we don't know. That could be the best wide receiver room in the league,
with a rookie quarterback and a very questionable
which could be one of the best quarterbacks that we've ever seen. So
I mean, sure, he could be. He could be good.
I just don't think it's clear. You're like it's obvious. I don't think it's obvious. I don't think it's pretty
obvious.
It's crazy because I agree with Evan right now. I just think that right now,
Green Bay ranked last year.
There's so much unknown with the Bears offense right now, especially centered around Caleb Williams. And generally, to Lee's point, when there's the unknown, we're all optimistic. We all see the best thing possible. Usually it doesn't happen. Usually it's somewhere in the middle of the pessimists and the optimists. But Caleb Williams is one of the best QB prospects we've seen in a while. He can move around, extend plays. He's going to get the ball out. I think the offense is going to be moving. And the Bears are a very underrated defense. I think that they are going to win the time of possession, the war for time of possession. I think that they are going to run more plays per game, especially with it being more pass-centric than it was under Justin Fields. I think they're going to take less sacks, take themselves out of their own drive less often with Caleb Williams. And don't get me wrong, Caleb Williams also known for trying to extend plays a little bit too much like Justin Fields. I think that he's got a little bit more awareness and pre-snap awareness of what's coming at him. I think he's going to be able to adjust to the NFL in terms of a passing mindset quicker than Justin Fields was. And I think that with Justin Fields gone, I don't think Caleb Williams is taking as much from the running back on the ground. And then, Lee, you mentioned how much Roschon and Khalil Herbert saw through the passing volume, like a ton of targets last season. Unquestioned, even though Roschon's solid, he's definitely above average as a pass-catching running back, especially for a dude of his size.
Mm-hmm.
But unquestionably, Swift is a much better pass-catching running back. Even if they do give up some of the work on the ground, I think Swift is going to make up through it with those more valuable touches through the air. And I think that this defense is going to keep people in check. Whereas I really don't see the Packers defense being quite as elite just for that argument of Jacobs versus Swift. Maybe Jacobs gets, that similar passing volume because of it, but just because they have 4 guys on that squad with none of them ever breaking out for the Packers, I'm speaking of, they got 4 young, talented wide receivers. I just got done projecting the Packers. And I'll admit it was really hard projecting the market share in this offense, where that's going around as far as the passing volume. I don't think that any guy's elite, but I think Love's going to spread the ball around. I think Caleb Williams, on the other hand, after, maybe a few, let's say, I don't know, honestly, 5 to 10 games of him learning, hey, I can't just backpedal like I did in college and then find a guy. It's going to take him some time to learn, but after he does learn that, he's going to start taking those easy dump offs, and I think Swift's going to run with it, especially with the defense focusing on 3 guys that really could be a wide receiver 1 on any team.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would say to that, if the Bears, and I agree, the Bears defense is better on paper, especially for a pass-catching running back, you would rather have the worst defense. You would rather be in a situation where you're in shootouts, where your offense has the ball more, where you have to score more points. And to Evan, and I understand that I'm taking the favorite here, but I would take points or total yards and bet anything you want Green Bay has more of either than Chicago. CJ Stroud has spoiled people. Rookie quarterbacks don't normally play like that. And I know Chicago's in a better situation than most first overall picks. There's going to be some growing pains with Caleb Williams.
So would you trade Jordan Love for Caleb Williams?
No.
Ooh.
So that's kind of contradicting your argument there.
I would.
That's kind of contradicting.
No, I would keep Jordan Love is what I'm saying. I would not give up Jordan Love. I would keep Jordan Love for Williams, 100%.
I heard what Lee was saying. He stood by his point. I would take Caleb Williams over Jordan Love.
Yeah, I would take Caleb over Jordan Love for sure, too.
It's just like the longevity at wide receiver on top of it. I get there's a ton of young wide receivers in Green Bay as well. And if any one of them hits, then, you know, you got your guy for the next few years. I do really like Jaden Reed, not only as an athlete, but as a route runner. I think he's incredible. However, when him and Christian Watson were both on the field, Christian Watson was getting more targets and like by a considerable amount. So I just don't know if there's that clear-cut wide receiver one that they have three of. There's three better wide receivers in Chicago, in my opinion, than
Yes.
Green Bay.
Yes,
I would think.
But for one season, because Keenan Allen's not going to be there past 1 year.
He still got two.
DJ Moore is fairly young, but okay. But for a quarterback, I mean, you would rather own the Bears receivers than the Green Bay receivers. I'll give you that. Jordan Love has done it on an NFL field at a high level. We've seen it. We have not seen it with Caleb Williams. These quarterbacks bust all the time, and that's where I would keep Jordan Love.
I can't wait to be in a league with you so I can take you up on some of these takes you got here. I would trade Jordan Love in an instant for Caleb Williams. In an instant.
I would get more. Being that you said that, I would get a little more. I would get Jordan Love plus something and be thrilled.
Oh, my God.
Dude, this podcast is going to be so tough having a league together. As soon as we get the last player back from their honeymoon, it'll be really nice to see. All right. Really quick, let's push on to our next guy. Of course, I always set up more than we need here for the podcast. We're a bunch of talkers here, but we got another great name lined up right now. It's Rashee Rice. Obviously a lot circulating around the name. Right now, according to Fantasy Pros, Rashee Rice is the wide receiver 27 and the 54th overall off the board in one quarterback formats. Again, Fantasy Pros, please get some super flex rankings up there. Of us, me and Lee are higher. Evan, you're going to kick it off with the lower than consensus take.
All right. So obviously we have to take into consideration what happened this offseason. And, that is something that, sure, it could be this season, or it could be a recurring thing that happens and he's a head case and it's something that the team doesn't want to deal with anymore and no other team is going to want to deal with it anymore. That could happen really quick, especially when you're starting to show signs like he's showing this. This is his first offseason. He's never had an offseason before. And I can't imagine a worse offseason for any other rookie to have than what he's had right now going through. And they added a first-round wide receiver to the mix. And not to mention, I almost don't even want to say his name anymore. But, it's not just Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice in the wide receiver room.
Don't want to say his name?
I don't want to say his name. I think I'm the problem. I think I'm jinxing. I'm causing this. So maybe if I just stop, he'll start to do something that's actually worthwhile. And then I don't
think I've ever heard Evan steer away from a Justin Ross.
All right, Justin Ross. It's Justin Ross. Oh, come on.
There we go. 26.
Oh, it feels so good. Okay. But no. But seriously though, they got Kelsey there too, and Kelsey just signed a new deal too. So I just 27, 20 wide receiver 27. I'm looking forward to after this when we talk about some of the receivers ahead of them and see what you guys think there.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. 27 to me seems so low. Like that is pretty crazy to me. I think that, like you were saying, a lot of people, the general consensus is down because of the potential suspension. I haven't really heard anything around the league. Obviously it's kind of all speculation until the league makes its decisions, and it can, be prolonged. We seen, was it Kamara that had the Pro Bowl punch?
Whole year. He got
exactly. Like that happened at the Pro Bowl right at the end of the season before the even last game of the NFL season is played in the Super Bowl. and then the entire offseason prolonged into the next season to the point where, moved it down the line a ton. So that can, kind of shift perspective right now. Go make the trade now if you're a believer in Rashee Rice. But even if he got half a season suspension, if he got 8-9 games, he's 24 years old on the second year of his deal, tied to Patrick Mahomes with Andy Reid calling the plays. There's not a better situation in the world for him to be in. The only other wide receivers on the team that are notable are Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy. Marquise Brown's on a 1-year deal. Xavier Worthy is great, but a skill set that Rashee Rice doesn't have. They are two different wide receivers, even though they both play wide receiver. They're completely different animals. Rashee Rice, so he did not have a true target. There's no targets focused to Rashee Rice until after the bye week, which for the Chiefs last year was week 10. So in week 11 through 17, you'll start to see the snap percentages go up, the targets become much more consistent. During that time, from week 11 to week 17, because he sat out week 18 with the guaranteed playoff, 8.7 targets per game, 7.3 receptions per game, 80 yards, and 0.42 touchdowns. That extrapolated to a 17-game season would have been 148 targets, 124 receptions, 1,360 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Honestly, wish I already did the math here. I'm going to do it right now, but that is a great season. 136 points. I'll kick it to somebody else. The only other wide receiver with his skill set, just because he's another big-bodied guy, is Justin Watson. I don't think anyone's threatened by Justin Watson. So, and really quick, just to touch on Evan's point about, will they keep him through the offseason? They had Tyreek Hill, and he had, abuse charges. Yeah, he had abuse charges. He's not going anywhere. Andy Reid's a great coach. He'll coach him through this moment. And, if they had Tyreek Hill going through domestic
the thing is, if it was one, I'd be like, fine. That's fine. It didn't really change my rankings when the first incident happened. A second incident happens in the same off season. No, I just got a sour taste in my mouth. I just feel like he's an idiot and he's making stupid decisions. And he's not 22 years old. He's 24. It's 2 years.
24.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But he's making decisions like he's a 21-year-old kid just out, and he should be more mature than that. And if he doesn't seem to be on the path for that.
Real quick. So just to add, and I know we've only got a minute left for our radio time. So Tyreek Hill had domestic violence in college. In 2019, he broke his 3-year-old son's arm with discipline. They thought he might never play again or he could be suspended a long time. They drafted McCole Hardman as a replacement. We know what happened there. They didn't want to pay him eventually, but he was back and better than ever. He's still a kid, man. He's 24 years old. And beyond the age, he got that money for the first time. He's a kid that, is probably not coming from wealth, not to stereotype or generalize anybody. And it's his first offseason after having a pretty good amount of NFL success. To me, you cannot overrate guys that have done it. And not to go back to the Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, because there is the mystery there. Caleb Williams could be Joe Montana. He could be Peyton Manning. He could be Tom Brady. He could be Ryan Leaf. He could be a complete bust. We don't know yet. To me, the value of a guy producing on the NFL field and showing us that he is an NFL caliber player is very, very valuable, and not to mention that he's tied to Patrick Mahomes. We're about to kick over to our YouTube show. I'm going to let Dan finish that. But real quick, Georgia Bulldog fans, we appreciate you listening. We got a baseball series coming up this weekend. My UNCW Seahawks are coming to Athens, and we're going to knock you guys out of that tournament.
Let's go.
I'm sorry, but that's what's going to happen. Love all you guys. Come to our YouTube.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, come to the YouTube, talk some more smack to Lee. Let him have it. I love the college baseball. There's not a truer form of, across all sports. College sports, play the game how it's supposed to be played. Love it. Let's talk some more football. Join us on the YouTube. We got tons of other, podcast. We got tons of content across our Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, even. We're doing it all. And I said Twitter. I'm old. X. Join us on all of them. Stay tuned for more Fantasy Rant and Stadium Rant content. We appreciate you all. Have a good week.
No go dogs
All right.
this week. Sorry.
No, you said.
We just talk about we get a TikTok as soon as it's about to be out, as soon as it's about to be banned. We get one going.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I like just real quick. I like college baseball more than Major League, partially because of the season's not so damn long. 45 games I can get into and follow. 162, 164 is just that's too much of a marathon for me. I went to UNCW.
I played baseball into college, so I know both sides of it. Yeah. Everybody who's a professional fan, as much of a diehard as you want to be, no one's truly weighing in the wins and losses too harshly unless it's drastic. For the first 40 to 60 games of the season. Right. After 62 games, you got another 100 to go. So it is such a marathon. It's insane, especially as a fan. And then, I only played JUCO ball admittedly, but even in junior college, we had a 46-game season. We would play 4 doubleheaders every week with a full 4 doubleheaders. So 8 games. I'm a pitcher, so if you're throwing 6 to 8 innings, your arm is shredded at least for another 2 days, and then you got maybe one for a rest day. It was insane doing that with a full college workload and working a job. Nuts to be in that, but just to watch the games and have only 45 games, have games. Every game truly matters at that point, especially at that top end level, like UNC and Georgia, like you're talking about.
Yeah. While we're on the subject, I might have my boldest take I've ever said on the podcast. I've been enjoying watching women's softball because my girlfriend.
I like that too.
Women's college softball is actually pretty intense because we're watching the peak. They don't have a pros. That is the top echelon, upper echelon. That's the best in the business. That right there.
Right. Other than the women's U.S. softball team, but that's just from the best college players, like you're talking about.
The College World Series and I watched the women's College World Series too. To me,
Oklahoma just crazy. Oklahoma just crazy. You can't beat Oklahoma.
No,
y'all got that ESPN Plus.
You know it. Oh yeah,
that's right. That's where you find.
I went to Wilmington, but ECU's 20 minutes away. I take my kid to a lot of the games, and that's the only station we're on. We are hosting. We're the 16 seed hosting coming up Friday. But I'm dude. To me, this is kind of the last. I watched the NBA Finals when we get there, but this is kind of the last sports event before we get back to football. ECU has the most wins of a D1 team to never make Omaha, and we got to go through a top 3 draft pick in Chase Burns and Wake Forest, and then we'd have to go to the number 1 seed Tennessee to make it. But you never know. Our top pitcher had a collapsed lung last week and didn't pitch, so things aren't looking great, but we'll see.
Did they have Tyrod Taylor's doctor?
Yeah.
Possibly.
He might have ran into collegiate sports after being in the pros.
Yeah, got knocked down a peg.
Really, you guys might have the next Justin Herbert coming up then. Who knows?
We may. I said they win a lot of games. I hope this is the year. But I would love to go to Omaha to a College World Series. We can get back to football. I know that's what everybody's.
I was going to say I got to get us back on track.
That's probably the extent of what I can talk about for baseball. I'm pretty much capped out there. I know
Georgia. If Wilmington
going back to football, so when you extrapolate the 17-game pace for what Rashee Rice did from week 11 to week 17, I compiled the numbers in the full PPR. That would have been 309 fantasy points. That would have put him over the course of the season at wide receiver 4, ahead of Puka Nacua. That's insane. It took a while for the guy to get going, and I know that he was definitely getting more involved before that point. But by, week 11, they are seeing what they actually have in him. They make the adjustments after the bye. I think that they continue to hit Rice when he gets back from his suspension, if it happens this year. And despite it, we're talking about Dynasty. Don't worry about a suspension. If you're in a startup draft and you're going a very specific draft strategy, you're going win now, maybe stay away from Rashee Rice. Outside of that, go and get the guy on the cheap if anybody is worrying about the suspension. Definitely think it'll be worth your time. All right, boys, I'll say let's do one more. We're already 5 minutes over. One more. If you guys are out there, if you want to comment, throw it in there. We'll see who you guys vote for. You're going to have to be quick, though, or else it's going to be our vote. Curtis Samuel, Dallas Goedert, or Jake Ferguson as the next player to talk about. Any votes, boys? Samuel.
I want to talk about Dallas Goedert because he was my guy, but I don't have the most profound argument. But I feel like it's a solid argument for what we're doing here. And I have good analogy. I have a good analogy set up. I'm gonna say that.
All right. I say let's hit Curtis Samuel this week. Maybe we can move on to some, tight end. Make that a part of the mix.
We didn't touch any tight
ends. Lee. And you know what? I'm not saying that you can't. I got talked to the hand. We're in 2008. No, I'm still down to hear whatever your analogy might be to cap off the show. I want to hear this analogy.
Fair enough.
All right. So Curtis Samuel, of us, we had me and Lee were the two that were higher with Lowen. I mixed Lower and Evan. Evan being the lower. So Evan, take it away with your low end sales pitch for Curtis Samuel.
Yeah. So this is a high powered offense. So it's going to be tough to be lower on any of these guys, but Curtis Samuel, I just feel like is an emergency. Like, I don't think that he's going to play. I would say he's definitely not playing more than 50% of the snaps and average. And he's definitely not, I would even argue probably 25% of the snaps.
Of the snaps?
Who else is playing?
You're crazy for 50% of the snaps.
So you think he's playing in more than 50% of the he's going to average throughout the year.
Who else?
And I'd put that bet down right now for sure.
I would take that.
Do you take that?
100%. Who else is going to play?
They got guys. They got guys on the team. They just signed Matt Collins. They got Khalil Shakir. They got Justin Shorter, who actually was really good. He was really good. He was really good with AR in Florida. Dude, we haven't been able to see him yet. They drafted him in the 6th round last year. Like, he's a really good athlete.
Justin Shorter may not make the team.
No, he's definitely making the team.
He may not make the team.
Where are you getting this from?
His own personal takes.
Yeah.
I almost said Brian Daboll had texted me, but he hadn't been.
I think he was one of the reasons why they didn't attack the wide receiver position, more aggressively than they did. But he's got talent. He's got talent.
I love your back end of the depth chart giant wide receivers.
He could be playing in Canada, Nick, by like November. I don't know when
they got Dalton Kincaid there. I don't see, like, sure, maybe he might get the more 50%. And I deserve to lose that for saying that out loud. But I don't see him getting a reasonable target. I will never put him in my flex unless, like, it's an apocalypse. My team went through an apocalypse and half of them died. Like, that's the only.
Like the I don't even want to say the league name, but the one we got with Jeff.
Yeah.
You wouldn't flex Curtis Samuel in that league?
No.
That's insane.
Would you start him over? I mean, depending on, obviously, Quentin Johnson, how he does, but I hope that we don't have to. You would start him over Quentin Johnson immediately.
100%.
Week 1.
Yes. Especially week 1. Maybe QJ turns into something potentially. But was it this podcast or a different one where I shared Curtis reception perception?
It seems like you guys have him in for a guaranteed role.
Yes,
I
do.
You 100%. See the wide receivers there.
He does not have a guaranteed role. He does not have.
All right. So just to touch on my argument, then, just of the vacated wide receiver targets, not any other position, just wide receiver, 285 vacated wide receiver targets from the Bills. Not on the team anymore. Obviously, about half of that is Stephon Diggs. Other part being Gabe Davis, Trent Sherfield, some other random guy that I can't think of right now. Not that they're weighing in a ton to that, but like there's so many targets up for grabs. They have Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman, other that like as the other notable wide receivers on the team.
Is Shakir playing on the outside?
I think that Curtis Samuel will be the primary slot guy, but he will mix into the outside. I think it'll probably be about 60-40 slot percentage for Curtis Samuel. And I think that Khalil Shakir will get the opposite of that. Keon Coleman, that's why I didn't like the landing spot, is because Keon Coleman, despite, like he is a big boy, he's got the contested catch potential, even though he didn't really flash a ton of that in college. But his biggest thing is that he's not a great route runner, and he really struggled against press. He's going to be relied on as the X wide receiver. I don't think he's going to excel in that role. I think that maybe he takes some deep shots. I think that maybe he ends up with Gabe Davis type numbers where they take some deep shots, low reception percentage, and then, ends up with a couple of highlight plays that gets people excited. But I think Curtis Samuel, especially with Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator, already had the 1 year in Carolina. In that 1 year, Samuel saw career highs in receptions and yardage with Joe Brady in that 1 year in Carolina.
Real quick, while you're going over that point, Dan, who were his quarterbacks in that season? Do you know?
I'm guessing Cam Newton.
No, it was Teddy Bridgewater and PJ Walker.
Wow. That's that's saying something, especially for it being 2020. 4 years ago, PJ Walker, I just watched him play some game for the Browns.
It was mostly
a young PJ Walker is not what you want slinging it. So, between that and Teddy, definitely a huge step down from Josh Allen. I just, above all, I just don't think that the threat of other targets is there. I statted out the Bills. I do have Kincaid as the target leader, and I do think that Kincaid will mix into the slot, taking a little bit away from Curtis Samuel. But at the same time, I don't think when it's a 12 personnel, they got 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and a running back on the field. I don't think Curtis Samuel takes a step off. I think Khalil Shakir does.
All right. So week 1, who are you starting? Curtis Samuel or Gabe Davis?
Curtis Samuel.
Still Curtis Samuel.
My God. Wow.
It sounds like we need to talk about Gabe Davis because you brought him up in our chat too.
Yeah.
And he's, in my opinion, the clear wide receiver 3 on that team, and is already in a role where it's such a low hit. Like even from a pass to pass standpoint, there's not a high completion percentage on the types of routes that he runs the most. I don't think that
this offseason was really bad for Kirk. This offseason was really bad for Christian Kirk. And I think that Christian Kirk is going to take probably the deepest drop out of a lot of the wide receivers that I had ranked on my list.
I harshly disagree with that.
Why was he on this list? Why wasn't his name showing up here?
I'm with you, Dan.
I listed him. I listed 20 players for y'all.
I have him lower. I gave you the opportunity. Look at the sheet. I put lower.
Calvin Ridley was supposed to take
you
his
did,
job,
but we were
he's gone.
At the time we had Tyler joining us as well. I think that he had something that wasn't like a dead split. I'm happy to talk Christian Kirk. Clearly, me and Lee are on the same standpoint here. We should definitely finish off Curtis Samuel before we move on to Christian Kirk. Unplanned. But really quick, just to touch on Kirk, everybody else on that team has a different skill set. The guy that they are going to need to rely on to move the chains is going to be Christian Kirk. Kirk was a beast last year. He was relied on. Evan Ingram saw a strong uptick after Christian Kirk left because it's just Ridley, who is more of like an intermediate to downfield threat. And then not much else after. Zay Jones was injured for a good portion of that, like when Christian Kirk was also injured. They didn't have that chain mover. Christian Kirk's the chain mover. Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis are going to be more of the deep, like downfield threats. And I think that they're going to try to make Brian Thomas into more of like, you know, a guy who can do it all and keep Gabe Davis as the field
I think he's
stretcher.
the one. I think he's the one.
Interesting. I go Kirk 1, Thomas 2, and Gabe 3 in year 1. Obviously, after, you know, another in 2025, that could change.
I think
Honestly,
Parker
I don't
Washington
know.
could have better stats than Gabe Davis this year.
Who? Parker Washington. I won't go that far.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
All right, write that down. Write that one down for me, Dan.
Parker
Do
Washington.
you want the opposite of that?
Yes, I would love the opposite of that, please.
More receptions than Gabe Davis. Let's be specific.
Who has more reception? Curtis Samuel has
Parker
more.
Washington has more receptions than Gabe
Parker
Davis.
Washington more receptions.
Parker Washington. I feel like I should get at least 3-1 odds on that, but I don't think Gabe Davis is that guy.
You can't say it there. You got to state that up top.
His efficiency in Buffalo was insane.
We're not betting any money on it, so it's okay.
Absolutely insane.
I don't know, man. I mean, the yards per reception is insane. The yards per target drops off a ton because the reception percentage is so low. Again, because the routes that he runs are so,
touchdowns per reception.
Right, because again, the types of routes that he's running, low reception percentage, high yardage output when it hits. And when it hits, you know, he's already 18 yards downfield. Who's going to stop him at that point if they get the reception?
He had one really great game in the playoffs, and people still remember that.
Yeah. Yep, that's a fact. So Parker Washington versus Gabe Davis, reception total. All right.
And then
like it.
I still can't believe this, though. I still can't believe you guys in Curtis Samuel. So who would you rather have in Dynasty? Curtis Samuel or Wan'Dale Robinson?
Curtis Samuel.
Stop it.
Wan'Dale Robinson, you say?
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan, for at least thinking about it. Thank you for at least thinking about it.
It's interesting because of the youth in Wan'Dale and Wan'Dale only knowing targets from Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor. That's tough.
So Dan, I'll pick somebody else that you love.
Wan'Dale has a lower ADOT. Without me looking it up, I'm very confident Wan'Dale has a much lower ADOT. He's not going to be the guy that ever changes your week for you, but he could be a more consistent, low-end flex play, the guy that gets you, 5 to 7 receptions for about 50 to 70 yards.
Did you say
that's not going to move the needle. Whereas I think in this offense, Curtis Samuel can move the needle. You just got to stay healthy. But if either team adds an average wide receiver, let's say slightly above average wide receiver, then they're moving down in the depth chart. Things are getting more spread out. Neither are guys that I'm necessarily targeting. But I think that with only Keon Coleman being added through the draft, and then scrubs like Chase Claypool. What's another name they brought in?
So I'll bring in a name that I know both of you guys are high on. Devontae Walker or Curtis Samuel. Who do you want to know?
I'll take Tez personally.
Exactly. So and do you know how much farther down Devontae Walker is ranked than Curtis Samuel right now?
I'll give you a reason why, though. And I would agree. I would take Walker, but only because of the unknown. There's a high probability that Tez Walker is not an
opportunity. You don't like the opportunity?
It's more the unknown. I like the opportunity, but at best,
you like the opportunity and the unknown. You like the opportunity and the unknown.
The unknown is the biggest thing. The opportunity is there with the unknown. Whereas I don't see that opportunity for Gabe Davis because of where he's at. And Tez Walker, he only played 6 games at Carolina. The 6 games were pretty damn good. And he's playing with Lamar Jackson, who has a pretty nice deep ball, and he only has Zay Flowers as far as receivers in front of him. And we know – here's the thing. I could go either way, though, because Curtis Samuel has proven he's an NFL-quality receiver. If you stat him out over the last 2 seasons, if he played 17 games, he's at about 950 yards. He's at about 650 because he's only played 12 games. Injuries are an issue, so and that's baked in. But for one season, I would 100% take Curtis Samuel. For a career,
I'm there with you.
Do you know
It's the
what's his best finish in his 8-year career?
Well, he had
the thing,
851, 3
about is
touchdowns,
injury. Yeah,
202
No.
touchdowns.
I'm looking at his best one. He played 16 games.
15 games.
his best one in half PPR that I'm looking at right now. Played 15 games out of 16. 25 was the finish in half PPR. Guess what? That was his 1 year with Joe Brady, and now he's got Josh Allen slinging it instead. So his
the
best
year
year
before
was
that, he played 16 games. The year before that, he played 16 games.
The year
He was
before
wide
that,
receiver
was not
36. He was wide receiver 36.
Right. Did not have Joe Brady as OC. I believe, I mean, again, without looking it up, I believe that's Cam Newton slinging the ball. Obviously, not the most friendly to wide receivers, not named Steve Smith. So
that was the last year of Cam Newton starting in Carolina. The 2000.
Right. So, like, not Cam Newton's prime, doesn't have Joe Brady. The guy's running very different types of routes because you can see it across the board in terms of like yards per catch, a dot, all these types of things. They used him in a different way with Joe Brady. I do think that Curtis Samuel also is going to get some love in the running game. It's not going to be 0 touches. It's not going to be enough to make a Deebo Samuel impact or anything crazy like that. But it's going to add a little bit to the mix there. And especially with the threat of James Cook, all that speed, Josh Allen running up the middle, even Ray Davis is going to add a little bit to the mix, add some power to the game. When you have some defenses that are going to key in against those types of guys, they're just going to throw Curtis Samuel in motion. Half the time they're going to forget about him. Every once in a while, that's going to pop off for a big play. And Curtis Samuel's a yak monster. If they can get him into open space, he's going to do work after the catch as well. Whereas, I don't really see that being Keon Coleman's game. I think that Khalil Shakir is scrappy, but I don't think that he's elusive. So I really like Curtis Samuel as the leader of the wide receiver group this year.
I got another bet for you, Evan.
Wow. So you have him as the highest, the best wide receiver.
77 is Curtis Samuel's career high in receptions, if I'm not looking at it wrong. 77.
With Joe Brady in 2020.
I will predict, and I don't know if you want it, I think he will surpass 77 receptions. I think he will have his career high in receptions this season.
I'll take it.
Yeah, and I'm on Lee's side this time as well. I will say that the receiving, like the reception percentage was very high that season. But I think that he gets more than that 97 targets if he stays healthy.
No, not targets, receptions.
Receptions.
Yeah, no, we're talking receptions. That's all I was saying is that the targets were not his highest of his career that year. It was second highest, but the reception percentage was crazy high.
Yeah,
Lee,
in 2019 he got 105 targets.
Injury though. Yeah. That's the only thing. The injuries is what's going to take us out, but I do think that he'll at least be on pace to break that reception.
The 1 year he had 100 targets and then caught 50 of them. So,
right, again, Cam Newton in his last season.
Yeah,
he was spraying everywhere.
Yeah, this is his year, guys. This is his year. You're right.
Would you rather have last year Cam Newton
or situation
at 28?
Do you like Kincaid?
Yes.
Do you like Keon Coleman?
Yes.
So you just don't like Curtis Samuel as a talent?
No, I think the Khalil Shakir is much better. I think Curtis Samuel is at best, the wide receiver or the fourth most targeted receiver on that team. At best. And I'm higher on Justin Shorter, so I think he's going to beat him out too. I think that they signed him as if something happens to Khalil Shakir, they got somebody they can throw in the slot.
All right. I mean,
Khalil Shakir has 49 receptions in his career.
Yeah. How many years has he played? He
played 2, but he has 49 combined.
On both those years with Diggs there, who was a target. That's a hoard. He hoarded up all the targets.
1, 2, 3. Curtis Samuel has at least 6 of those, and he has not played with a quarterback as good as Josh Allen in his prime.
Yep.
I go for a second. Did I freeze on y'all ends too?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. You're back now.
Okay, word. Glad it wasn't just me. I will say I'm starting to sweat this bet that I'm agreeing with Lee on the injuries, and I just went to my own projections, and I was like, that is not quite the amount of
Not
receptions.
quite where you had him, huh? Not quite where you had him.
I still have him as the clear reception leader in the wide receiver room.
I
still stand by.
I would throw another one out there, and like we can put stakes on this if you want. That Curtis Samuel has more receptions than Khalil Shakir. Like, I don't know what stakes we would put on it, but I would absolutely smash that.
I would put that down there too. I mean, we typically do.
I've got stakes. The loser, I don't know that Evan will agree to this. The loser of the Shakir versus Samuel receptions bet has to shave their head on camera.
How about this? How about this? Okay, the loser.
Take off your hat, Lee. This is not a fair bet at all. You're a sneakster, and you're like
the loser of the bet.
I even almost was like, that's crazy.
The loser of the bet has to take a red Sharpie and rub it all over their face and do the podcast with that.
That's kind of lame.
Sharpie.
Let's think of something better than that, Evan.
Y'all, we got the podcast on a Wednesday, and we all work a 9 to 5. We can't be going in with red Sharpie on our face for the next week.
It's actually the only thing that I had on my desk, so I was like, you know what? Let's use this.
I mean, the shaved head is because I shave my head every week, and I will admit to that.
Hold on, you'd have to shave your beard. Evan has to shave his hair.
If it was a beard, I would. That would hurt me.
No, I know it would. I know
the equal comparison there would be like a full body wax if I had to shave my head.
You gotta get the Steve Carell, Kelly Clarkson.
Dude, I'm like a Neanderthal.
I got a full head of hair here. You think I'm shaving this? No,
how about this? We all got a Waffle House somewhere in the area. What if we do half of the Waffle House challenge? You go 12 hours, however many waffles you eat takes off your total time there. However many waffles you don't need is hours you have to spend in the Waffle House.
No,
but we cut it.
I want to see.
That seems like a big bet for just I mean, that's like a league-wide bet. I don't hate that name, but that's more for our league. When we do the league, if we want to do the Waffle House or half the Waffle House, I'm good with.
I am
eat a banana, core and all.
That's a good fallback. That's a good fallback. I'd rather see your Sharpie face though on camera and be able to look at that for an hour.
I mean, Evan, your face is already red. I don't know how much.
Pick a different color. Lee's going to be red though. If I win, Lee's is red. He can pick a different color. I don't care.
We'll keep on mowing this over. We'll figure out some type. I think also, hot wing, hot chip challenge should be.
Hey, we can do the hot chip challenge.
Hot chip challenge?
I can't do that. I actually had. You guys ever do you ever see the hot ones? You ever seen the Da Bomb hot sauce? So I had some of the Da Bomb hot sauce. Completely fucked up my insides for like a week. Can't do that.
I'm with you. I've done the hot wing challenge at B-Dubs and a couple other places, and it fucks me up.
Can't do it. I'd rather just
made hot sauce for a living for like a year and a half.
I just want to embarrass somebody. Just embarrass somebody for an hour. Make them come on camera with bullshit.
What do I got to bet to get you to shave your head, Evan?
I don't know, man. Like I said, probably the full body wax would probably be something equivalent to it.
But we can't put that on camera. Nobody wants to see that. And I don't want to experience it. There's no way to prove it. So we got to have something.
Before and after. Before and after would be quite fine. Just a quick bloop, put it up there. And maybe it's just hanging out there the whole time. I don't know.
It's just hanging out there.
We do also want viewers.
What are you suggesting, Evan? What are you suggesting? This is YouTube. We will get banned.
Bro, if I shave my head, it's going to be shaved not that day, not the next day, not the day after that. It'll be shaved for weeks. So, it's got to be something.
But if I'm showing the world that it's hanging out there, we will get kicked off of YouTube, Evan.
Well, you're not.
Well, yeah, you got
swinging it around. You're going to have underwear on.
Well, how will you know?
I don't care if you don't do your bikini area, Lee. I just want everything else. You know what, Lee? I actually really care if you do your bikini area. I have to actually see it in order to know it happened. So. Yeah.
YouTube after hours. We're gonna start our own Fantasy Rant OnlyFans page.
Hey,
only Rant.
Only
Rant.
Hey,
Only Rant
Send
and
me a
Gooches.
dollar.
And Gooches, you know, a little bit of Gooch.
Send me a dollar.
Only Rant, you got to talk
FLC
fantasy advice the
86, that's my
entire
cash
time you're
app.
getting ripped. Instead
Listen,
of Kelly Clarkson, there's going to be Keon Coleman.
Yes.
oh, Khalil Shakir.
Oh, Curtis Samuel.
Oh,
I am
man.
too loud.
All
I've
right.
gotten
So,
them
I mean, unless we have some serious points to make on, Curtis Samuel,
Listen.
I didn't really have too much else on him other than the Bills have been a high passing volume offense for a long time. That can change now that there's no clear number one, that they've lost 285 wide receiver targets off the roster. But
I do want to add something real quick, Dan. Real quick. And like I said, I do have something after this, but as far as the Curtis Samuel piece, 3 years, 24 million, 14 guaranteed. They did draft Keon Coleman, who I went back and forth on. Curtis Samuel is by far the most proven wide receiver on that roster. He's done the most in the NFL. I don't think there's any question. I don't think Evan would disagree.
He's got 9 years in the league, so he should.
I don't know about 9 years, but 6.
It's 8. He's going on 9.
And this is an offense, even with Joe Brady, who liked to run it first. And again, I'll be honest, obviously, I like James Cook more. I like Dalton Kincaid more. I like Curtis Samuel as the third option in this offense. This is an offense that's going to score a lot. It's going to get a lot of yards. Somebody's going to rack those up. Evan thinks it's Khalil Shakir. I think it's Curtis Samuel. We'll see about Keon Coleman. We're going to figure out a good bet for you guys, and it will be something visual for the show so you guys can all see it. It won't be my nether regions because nobody wants to see that. But hey, Dad, calm down. I will start on the fans. You show me a couple of dollars. But I think everybody agrees that the Buffalo offense, while it may take a step back, is still going to be an explosive offense that gains a lot of yards and scores a lot of touchdowns. I don't think, and I'm curious, and we can kind of end with this and my quote, but how badly do you guys think Josh Allen as a quarterback takes a step back? Or do you not think he takes a step back at all as the quarterback one in Superflex and fantasy?
He takes a step back for me. He does.
Where at? How far?
Not very far. Like, he's still in the top 5 for me.
And especially Dynasty,
for redraft, he goes down much farther. But
Dynasty, we're talking Dynasty here.
For Dynasty, he goes back about 5. I still got
5?
Maybe, yeah, right around. I mean, he's also getting older.
Let's hear the names. Who do you have in front of him?
I do have Stroud above him. I would have Mahomes above him. I would have Hurts above him. I would have who else is there? Who am I missing? I'm missing a big one. Why can't I think of him?
Lamar?
Burrow.
Mahomes?
I said Mahomes.
You said Mahomes. You said Hurts.
Burrow.
I would throw Lamar into the mix if you're saying CJ Stroud personally.
I'm really high on CJ Stroud too.
So that's the thing. CJ Stroud just doesn't get it done on the ground, and that's where you make up the fantasy points. Still, truly a broken system here, but like I kind of dialed back even across Josh Allen's career averages, which are very much weighed down by his first year and a half in the league. He's not finishing where he normally would. That being said, I think that he's going to take it on himself to get the job done on the ground. So I have a small spike up in the rushing totals because, again, he plays the hero ball on every single down. And with the wide receivers around him in comparison to what he's had, he's going to, he's going to see things that are much more covered than he's used to seeing. He's not going to have that downfield threat, throw up a prayer with the Gabe Davis. We've seen that plenty of times, especially me living in Western New York. Mm-hmm. Bills games are on all the time. We see Josh Allen sprint for his life, break 2 tackles, heave up an absolute prayer downfield to Gabe Davis. Sometimes it hits, turns into touchdowns. other half of the time ends up either falling on the ground or into a defender's hands. And people don't knock it too much because, maybe it's third down. It's as good as a punt when you can chuck it 70 yards in the air like Josh Allen can.
Mhm.
So I think those things are going to become more frequent. I have him even after last year with his, I think, worst, most interceptions. Yeah, he had 18 interceptions. I have him repeating that last year through 29 touchdowns. I have him just one step below at 28. I think Kincaid steps up, but I do think that the rushing numbers take a step up from last year and evens it out. Last year,
You think
15 rushing.
he gets 15 touchdowns again on the ground?
Not 15 rushing touchdowns. I have him statted for 11 right now.
Wow. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, that's a
listen,
lot.
if we take his totals right now, so
I mean, he's putting those are running back rushing numbers. How big? How long is longevity for running backs in the league?
All right, so I got to interject. So November 14th is when Joe Brady took over, and they became a more rushing offense. That was the Denver game last season. After that game, Josh Allen finished as the quarterback 5, the quarterback 1, the quarterback 9, the quarterback 17. He had a bad week. The quarterback 2, the quarterback 6, the quarterback 4.
Yeah.
And I get it that Diggs is gone. I don't give a damn about Gabe Davis being gone. You guys can say what you want. It was a couple of big weeks and mostly nothing. If you started him in fantasy, you didn't win your championship, and you were pissed off about having Gabe Davis in your lineup. Stephon Diggs had a huge fall off once Joe Brady took over. Maybe he doesn't have 15 rushing touchdowns. I think he has at least 10. I think he's at least in the double digits. I agree with Dan that I think he will just in a game in and game out. It's not just the touchdowns. Can you give me 50 yards rushing every game? If you can give me 50 yards rushing, that is a game changer for a quarterback because that's essentially an extra touchdown and 25%. He's going to have to rush it more. He's shown – I mean, he is 28. I'll give you that, Evan, as far as fantasy. At Dynasty, I'm taking him.
Longevity's not there. They'd be smart to not do that with him.
Okay, they'd be smart, and they've
bulldozer.
talked about it a season or two ago that they don't want him to run as much. It's Josh Allen out there on the field in the moment.
He does his
He's
own
going to
thing.
do Josh Allen things, and we've never seen him slow down ever.
But
Listen,
he's not fucking super. Or he's not. Sorry, he's not Superman. Like he's not going to be able to.
For after
like,
hours,
do
you can
this
say fuck
forever.
him.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to do this forever. He's
when
not
did
going to be
Cam
able to do this
Newton
forever.
go away? Around
I don't-
30, 31? I'll give
Well, that's a good –
Josh Allen's 28.
That's
He's
a good
very much in
point.
the Cam Newton style. I don't think he's going to be Tom
When did
Brady
Cam Newton
playing
retire, or
the
when did his performance start to slip?
When did he drop off? I think it was around
Well, okay,
30,
so
31.
Cam Newton played 11 seasons in the NFL. Well, this is according to Sleeper. Really, 3 of the let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 seasons where he started at least where he's beginning the season off as a starter. There's 1 year where he got injured, and the last year he played 8 games. 9 seasons. In his 8th season with New England, 137 attempts on the ground, 592 rushing yards, and 12 touchdowns. And that's on a trash New England Patriots offense where they really were relying on Cam Newton just to move the chains, please. Please get a first down. That's the best case scenario, that we just don't go 3 and out right now.
Yeah.
And relying on the defense.
That's where I'm thinking.
But
man,
his real drop off was 7 years ago when he was still on Carolina, and he finished as the QB 11. So this was great. That was his last great year until 2018. After that,
Right,
he finished 51.
All you were speaking about at the time is Josh Allen being 28 and the rushing statistics.
Cam Newton was
falling
28. Cam Newton was exactly 28 when he went from 11 to 51.
Josh Allen's a better passer.
But he also
than
played 2
Cam
games
Newton
that year, so I can't really count
Okay,
that game.
and then the next year, he had 137. So a year after that, he's even older. and had 137 rushing attempts for almost 600 yards and 12 touchdowns.
I'm just
Josh
saying,
Allen's better than Cam Newton is and has kept his body in better condition
Correct.
than Cam Newton.
he's a better passer than Cam Newton ever was. And I'm sorry to all my Carolina people.
Yes.
To me, the rushing style is where that comparison is. They're very similar in rushing style. They're not going to break off 60-yard runs, but they are bulldozers. And if you get inside the 10, they're probably going to score the touchdown. Even better than Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts and the tush-push really skew his numbers as far as what he's getting on the ground. I might take Mahomes over Allen. If I was doing a startup right now and I had 101 because of the longevity, because I know that his style of play is going to last, I'm not taking anybody past 102 for Josh Allen. And I hear you on CJ. CJ may get there. He may be that guy. We've seen 1 year of it. He doesn't add anything in the rushing game. He has to prove to be a Patrick Mahomes level passer. I'm not ready to put that on him. But to me,
so when do you put it on? Like, so unless he is Superman, you guys think he's going to be able to do this?
Throw for 40 touchdowns in one season.
When do you think he stops? When do you think his fall off is on the rush?
Josh Allen?
Yeah.
31, 32.
So you think he's going to be running like this for 4 more years?
Yes.
I think it'll slightly taper down, but I think after the season, I'm guessing based on my projections and what they got on the roster, that they are going to see, hey, we do need a top end wide receiver on the team, like every NFL team does. Josh Allen has been playing the Superman role for so long. I feel like they've almost gotten accustomed to it, to the point where they're in a year where they clearly needed a wide receiver. They had guys on the board, and they traded back to their biggest rival in the NFL, the only team that consistently beats them in the playoffs, and they were still like, yeah, we'll trade back. So I think that the Bills are thinking of this in terms of long-term. I do think this is a mini rebuild for the Bills. I think that the Bills are going to be a little bit worse than people are expected to see them. And this isn't just fantasy talk. This is, we got a lot moving on the defense. Tre'Davious, the secondary overall, just not what it used to be. Maybe Matt Milano comes back and helps out the linebacker crew a little bit. The defensive line is still very solid. They're still pretty deep. They're still going to create some havoc. However, when you don't have the lockdown secondary, and not even lockdown, when you don't have an average secondary, they're going to get beat. Josh Allen's going to have to throw the ball. That's going to create more scrambling opportunities for him. And that's what Josh Allen does. If there's not a guy open, and he'll take his shot, he'll squeeze it in some tight windows. He'll, get some turnovers because of it. However, I think that all of those things are going to lead to more Josh Allen pass attempts and scrambling opportunities. I think that Josh Allen stays a top-end quarterback, while most of his ancillary pieces do not have as much. You hit your knee on the way in, Lee? I could have not addressed it. You look in pain, bro.
Yeah. One too many of these.
Man. Yeah.
I hate those voodoos. Those voodoos are so trash.
Trash.
Here's some more free advertising for you, Basil Hayden.
You stay your ass
Love
in
your
Seattle.
product.
You're not welcome in Raleigh.
This is what you want. This is what you want. Urban family right there. Urban family.
I better be welcoming. All of the South accepts me with this bourbon.
Yeah.
Dan Baker, you can move to Raleigh all you want.
Let's go.
Hey, I did it. Yeah.
Really quick. Honestly, Evan, really quick, hit him with you just went down to, was it North or South Carolina? South?
North Carolina. Come on,
North
Dan.
Carolina. I did spend some time in South. No, I did
He
spend
just
some
went.
time in South. I went to Myrtle Beach for a little bit.
So you were in North Carolina. I want to hear one bit about, your takes down there, maybe some type of logics that you brought up in the group chat. And then, Lee, I do want to hear your analogy for your Dallas Goedert take there.
I got it. We're going to win that.
So I'm still, I actually have running a Google list of all of the I call it Southern logic things that don't make sense, easy to fix, but are just in continuation for some unforeseen reason.
That region.
I can't figure out why they're still there. Like there's for example the red lights. So you have one red light, one yellow, one green, right?
Right.
They have 2 red ones at the top.
Never seen that before.
That's
Never
not
seen-
the most in North Carolina. Let me tell the viewership that he found 2 intersections in Raleigh, which is a very odd place. Capital of the state. We've got a lot of people moving down. You know, a lot of people carpet bagging from Seattle. They do weird things up there.
Mhm.
It's not the majority.
They also still need to figure out in order to figure out what businesses this, you need to billboard. That's why there's about 1,000 billboards in on every expressway in Raleigh.
Have you ever been on an interstate? Have you ever been on an interstate, Evan? Yes, we believe in billboards.
Yeah. There's in comparison, there's like no billboards compared. Like you guys are the only ones that have like an obscene amount of billboards. Bojangles, also an obscene amount of Bojangles and cookouts. The amount of like just food.
Did you have a Bowberry biscuit? Did you have a Bowberry biscuit?
I didn't go to either of those places.
You are
right.
a fool, sir.
The speed limit variations that it will go through. So a lot of these are on driving. And then another big one, ABC. Can you explain to me why you can only purchase spirits from one store?
So, yes, I can explain that to you. And basically the explanation is it's fucked.
Yeah.
He can't explain it. It's a monopoly. It's dumb.
That's what I've grown up with. But it is. I've lived in Nevada. I've lived in some other states. It's very stupid. The only thing I can figure is, they're setting it up whenever we do start selling the weed, and Virginia started. I think Tennessee may have started. So the weed's coming, and they do have a built-in distribution system for it. But the ABC stores is dumb. I'll give you that.
There you go. And also, Lee, the oldest I've ever felt you feel is when you called it the weed. The weed is on the way in.
I didn't say the reefer.
These kids are all on the weed.
You're not doing that because one of my very close friends' father only calls weed the reefer. In any context that has the in front of it, he never will, but he would be like, I smoked the reefer.
Just real quick, from the
Are
Fantasy Rant, we would like to recommend to all of you guys that are listening, don't do drugs. Drugs are bad.
Okay.
I mean, if you're old enough, do what's legal. I'll take the other route. Be responsible, but do what's legal to you, and don't be a fucking asshole. That's all.
What she writes did this offseason, don't do that. Don't do any of that.
And that wasn't even drug related. But
no,
yes,
he had a ton of weed in the car. There was a ton of weed in the car. Yeah. So.
Who knows if he was high? Anyways, we digress. We'll move on.
Actually, I repeat, there was a ton of the weed in the car.
Do you have any other complaints about my state?
Now we can move on with that take. Now that we addressed it by its proper title.
Yeah, they had to, how could you forget that?
Hey, Evan, real quick.
There's a Stephen A. Meme or short clip where he's like, "Stay off the weed."
The weed.
Evan,
Lee, you're on the track, man.
So
what's up?
You were one.
Stephen
I just want to ask you have any other complaints about my state, and two, you went to Myrtle Beach. You went to the Crystal Coast. I know you were in Beaufort. You didn't go to the Outer Banks.
Oh, Beaufort. That reminds me, Southern Logic. So both cities named after the same person, right? So South Carolina has a Beaufort, but it's called Beaufort. And North Carolina has a Beaufort. They're both spelled the same, both named after the same person, just pronounced differently.
If you move to Raleigh, you will learn this. And I'm sorry to anybody that's listening down there. But South Carolina people, I'm not going to call them South Carolinians because we're North Carolinians and fuck them. They're stupid. People in South Carolina are just stupid.
I've heard this before. I hear this is a strong.
So here's my thinking on this. So Lee, you know how the states have lines, and how some neighborhoods you could spit and you hit South Carolina, but you're sitting in North Carolina. So where's that line drawn?
It's mountains, bro.
On a
Where's the
fucking
stupidity?
map.
Where's the stupidity link? No. I get the state line. I get the state line.
You know what? That is where the lines are drawn.
You're gonna tell me
It is
one
on the map.
neighbor is stupid.
On to the
one neighbor-
next point. No,
Like so, these next door neighbors. One's in South Carolina. One's in North Carolina. This one has to be stupid.
Evan,
It's that whole city. That whole city.
They chose to live in South Carolina
That
instead
city
of North
is in North
Carolina.
Carolina too.
They're
I'm
stupid.
sorry, listenership, for being the only slightly educated person on this podcast. It's geographical lines. This is a mountain. That's why
about the stupidity line. I'm talking about the stupidity line. So since they're so close, and you can literally skit
that's a good
across,
question.
where does the stupidity line stop?
Oh,
That way.
you didn't phrase it like that. How it goes south into South Carolina, or does it raise
Listen.
into some of North
Okay,
Carolina?
well, Dan, you belong
Listen.
there after asking that question. It's literally
The
called
ones
North
in
and
South Carolina.
That's what I said. I said, does the south border, like the stupidity border?
Yes.
I'm building on your point.
Yes.
Does the stupidity border dip south of your North Carolina, South Carolina
Yeah,
border?
so are some Carolinians? So, okay, I get what your point is now, Dan. Are
Yeah.
some South Carolinians smart?
That's a better way of phrasing it. Yeah.
No, they're all fucking stupid.
Okay, then some people in
So-
North Carolina have to be stupid.
So that means that it has to
course.
dip in any
But
direction
everybody
into
in
your
South Carolina is
territory.
stupid.
If all South Carolinians are dumb, and this feels like such a weird, plural phrase for a state, but if
South
all
Carolinians.
South Carolinians are
Listen,
stupid,
listen.
then it means that it has to rise somewhere
Has
in the
to
north.
rise, has to
Okay,
rise.
What's the
I'm not
southernmost?
saying that there's not
What's the
stupid people in North
southernmost
Carolina.
city in
I'm
North
not saying
Carolina?
that.
Oh, okay,
They're
fair,
dumb.
fair, fair.
What I'm
They're
saying-
dumb. They
Lee's
have some
correcting his
South
statement.
Carolinian population moving up
Yeah,
into
yeah.
the North Carolina states.
But he's going to correct
Coming
it right
up,
here.
your
He's correcting his
population.
statement. Let him correct his statement. Let him correct
South Carolina is a mostly state full of idiots. They're mostly just morons. And I'm sorry, they're not everybody. There's some smart people down there, but it's the vast majority
There's
of our
5.2 million people in South Carolina.
listen,
We just
we've got
Harsh.
about
so
12
much of a
million
fan
people.
base.
And most of the smart people from South Carolina moved up here. Okay. I'm sorry.
Oh my god.
There's a lot of, how should I put this delicately?
No.
Backwoods country hicks in South Carolina who
There
have
we go.
never
That
left the
wasn't-
county that they grew up in. You will see some of that in North Carolina, but not as much. For the most part, you know,
I've seen it before I moved there. Oxford. How smart are people in Oxford, North Carolina?
I'm
Granville-
not-
Granville County. Granville County.
Granville County, they're kind of, that's a country, that's a pretty country. Okay?
That's the north of North Carolina. That's North Carolina.
That's North Carolina. We have some country counties. We have
Yeah,
some
that's
people
north
that
of
have never
there.
left the county they were born
Of
in.
course.
Okay.
Everybody, to be
does.
fair, there are
The state of
a
Washington
lot
has
of-
some people that live in the woods and believe in fucking Sasquatch. Okay.
It's true.
Let's
That's
be
true.
real.
That's facts. That's facts. Yeah.
I mean,
But
To be fair,
Washington
there's a
also
lot of-
has Seattle.
there's a lot of super dumb people in New York.
Yeah.
right.
There are some hicks out here
Let me
in New
just-
York.
I just want to apologize to the entire state of South Carolina. I didn't mean it.
You
And I
mustn't
take
mean
it back.
Oh, I thought you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, stand by your takes. We apologize for nothing.
Yes, exactly.
All 5.2 million of you people are the smartest people we've ever met. You're lovely
Yeah.
people.
Nikki Haley's pretty hot. Nikki Haley is pretty hot.
And you know what? Now I realize that, the southwestern tip of South Carolina, right up against Atlanta, or right up against Georgia.
Yeah.
Atlanta's a little bit more southern, but
Yeah.
more specifically for you, Atlanta viewership.
So I
If you
think
were ever a part of
there's a
South
line.
Carolina,
The stupid- I think the
congratulated.
stupidity line
We
cuts
congratulate you on moving up in the states, getting to a smarter state and out of South Carolina.
The
See,
Sea
I
Ops
very
are
don't
coming
think
for
it's like
you.
an everything below is stupid line because I think Atlanta people are smart. I think Georgia's like they're doing better, but like I think that the stupidity
Yeah.
line that drags across the country, I think that goes right in between North Carolina and South Carolina.
Lee, just about 20 seconds ago, you whispered something into the mic, and I am very curious what that was because I knew it.
I was just apologizing to the people of South Carolina. There's some great people down there. And Evan pushed me to say some things that I didn't want to say. And
Yeah, it's Evan's fault.
it
Yeah.
is Evan's fault. I'm
I'm
just saying.
sorry for sharing my experiences for 2 weeks in that state.
Listen, Myrtle Beach. Ultimately, here's where I wanted to go, Evan, and you got me off track. Myrtle Beach is okay as a touristy. It's not a great beach, I'll be honest. But if you're there on Bike Week or
It's a solid beach.
you're a yuppie from Seattle and you don't know what you don't know what's left or right.
I'm not from
enjoy
Seattle. I ain't from here. I'm not from here.
I'm just
I
telling
just
you.
looked at it. Charlotte's one of the it's the most popular city in North Carolina,
Most
right?
popular city,
Most
yes.
popular,
Raleigh
yeah.
is second.
And it's one of the most southern cities.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also
I don't
the
know,
banking
man.
capital of North America.
I mean, you guys
Yeah.
might have some dum-dum sneaking up from South
And
Carolina.
banks are stupid. Banks are
Back to
stupid.
what I was saying, Evan, though. When you get back out and you move to Raleigh, yes, Myrtle Beach, if you're looking for the touristy bullshit and people didn't want to sell you things on every corner and there's, honestly, if you have kids and you may be there by that time, you have kids and you need shit to do, Myrtle Beach is fun. If you want to see one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, you come to the Outer Banks, to Nag's Head, to Kill Devil Hills, where the first flight in fucking recorded mankind history occurred.
The Wright brothers. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And that's it. Honestly, if you have your kids, my kids still remember going there, but that's not the big thing. The Outer Banks, honestly, if you look at like ratings,
I've been there. I like the Outer Banks a lot. I do.
that's what I was saying. If you're looking for ratings or a beautiful beach to visit, people come from South Carolina, people come from Virginia, people come from Pennsylvania, New York, all over the East Coast. The Outer Banks is where you want to come. And if you do come to the Outer Banks while you're in Raleigh, we'll stop somewhere and get a beer because you'll have to come literally within a mile or two of me. But also, fuck South Carolina, fuck the Gamecocks, and fuck Georgia.
Well, that's perfect. I think that's where we're gonna end it here. We have gone.
We need Lee's analogy. He's got.
Okay.
Oh, we do need Lee's analogy.
Okay, so
Dallas Goedert, tight end.
we're going to cover this more in depth next week, guys. But I just want to tell you, I'm not super high on Dallas Goedert. I don't think he is Sam Laporta, Trey McBride. I'm not over here delusional. But what I will tell you that Dallas Goedert is, and I'm going to take you back to a simpler time in your life. When you were in high school, and maybe Dan and Evan didn't experience this, but some of us did. You're in high school when you're a junior or you're a senior, and you're getting ready to go to prom. And maybe you don't have a steady girlfriend, or maybe there's some girls listening. You don't have a steady to go to prom, and your options are dwindling. You don't really know who you're going to take to prom. And there's this, let's say, girl, because I think it's mostly guys, but maybe it's a guy. And there's this girl who is maybe not the most attractive person in your class, but she's friendly. She has a good personality. She seems smart, and she needs a date. And she reaches out to you on lunch break. You're at lunch, and she comes up to you, Evan, and she's like, "Evan, me and you, I would like you to take me to prom." That's a good date. At this point, you don't have a steady person. You're not picking top 5 in the draft. You're not taking one of the top people to the prom. But this girl, and again, she's not the worst person in your class. She's she's all that, if you will. If she got a makeover and Freddie Prinze Jr. showed up, maybe she could be attractive. And she reaches out to you and she's like, "Yeah, Evan, you want to take me to prom?" Dallas Goedert is that tight end in the NFL. He's not gonna break your heart. He's not taking your sister to prom. He's not gonna lose you a week. He's a tight end that you can have on your roster. You can start week in and week out. He's not gonna lose you the week. He's not taking your sister, or he's not taking your best friend's girlfriend to prom, so you're not alone. He's somebody that, hey, on the right week, things go right, things get lubed up. You might get lucky at the end of that week. You may have a good week with Dallas Goedert, but he's not going to lose you the week. He's not going to be, showing up with your sister and everybody figures it out and they're like, hey, Evan, why the hell did you bring your sister to senior prom? That's not cool.
No, that's not cool.
Not cool. Nobody
Definitely
wants
not.
So you're asking me if I would say yes or no?
So, Evan,
Dallas Goddard or
I would say yes. I would take Dallas Goddard there, but I would also take the prom date and then I would trade up and I would try to get something
at the
better.
prom.
I'm
You're that guy.
I would take this date and I would try to trade up with it. I'd be like, so who are you guys taking it down? I'd meet with the guys, be like, all right, where are you evaluating your prom date so far?
All right, so just
I'd
to
be like,
continue on.
I got an ounce of the weed. How about we swap here?
Right. Okay. I like the ounce of the weed. I like that. I was gonna say, like, to add on to the analogy, like maybe you got the ugly friend plus the ugly friend's ugly friend. Now you got two ugly friends to swap with. You're gonna package this deal in for a better prom date / tight end.
Yes.
Look,
exactly.
most time in that situation, Dan, you may end up with both of the ugly friends, and I don't think that's a loss.
No, yeah, you're gonna have a fun time. You're gonna multiply those 5s into a 10, and you're gonna have a good time. They're gonna work 2 different areas for you. No,
I actually just received a share of Dallas Goddard in Dynasty, and I'm trying to trade him immediately. So yes,
hold up,
great analogy.
You make a trade, Dynasty?
Yeah, in the Indigo Creator League, the one that I got Puka Bijan and Dallas Goddard. And I gave away, and I got 2/3 on top of it. And I gave away Drake London, Trey McBride, and
I remember the trade
earlier. That makes
I think you made out in this deal.
Yeah.
So Evan sends Derek Carr, Drake London, Trey McBride, and the 108. He receives Puka Nacua, Bijan Robinson, Dallas Goddard, and 2024 and 2025 third-round picks. Obviously, the downgrade from Trey McBride to Dallas Goddard is considerable, both age and production.
Yeah.
What's up?
Tight end premium.
Yeah, tight end premium. He moves up with trading, and I like Drake London a lot, and his talent, B, his opportunity. But Puka Nacua, definitely a tier up from him. And then Derek Carr, it's a 1 QB league. Derek Carr means basically nothing. So
it's a 16 man. It means a little bit more.
It's a what you say?
16-man league, so it means a little bit more.
That's
right,
fair.
A tiny bit more, but I mean, what do you have off the top? I know you got Bryce. Do you have CJ Stroud in that league?
No, I got AR in that league.
Oh, there you go. AR and Bryce Young. Well,
no, I got AR and Minshew. I don't have Bryce Young in that one.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of another league then. But yeah, regardless, Anthony Richardson starting over Derek Carr 100% of the games that he's healthy. You're not really relying on Derek Carr.
No, he was
really, in my mind, it's like we'll say Derek Carr is one of your 2025 third-round picks. Then you move up from London Nacua. You move down from McBride to Goddard. Bijan Robinson's well worth more than the 108 that you traded away. A lot, even if you package the third round, the extra 2024 third round into the deal, I think you win for sure.
Yeah, I was happy with
that.
Yeah,
I would agree, and I hate to give Evan any props or agree with him.
Right.
I hate to. But in the league that we talked about earlier, I drafted Puka in the second round, Drake in the third, and I think Puka is clearly a level above Drake.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would do that. I would do that in a second.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I guess since we're talking about it, I'll just hit it really quick. I also made a trade. I personally do see this as an objective loss, but a subjective win. I traded away Kyler Murray, and again, 1 QB league. I have Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield as my backups. Traded away Kyler Murray and Zamir White, which we talked about. Hold on, we didn't actually get to him. I'm high on Zamir White.
I love Zamir.
I do too. I think that was a tough trade, man. That was a tough trade.
I sent away Kyler Murray and Zamir White. I get in return Kirk Cousins, the 109, and a 2025 second round pick. It's also from the team that finished in third last year. Doesn't have an impressive roster. my other running backs on the team, it's a 16-team league, so it's a little bit more shallow. But Saquon Barkley, David Montgomery, God bless. Saquon Barkley and David Montgomery are my two other running backs on the squad. I got, backups like Isaiah Spiller, DeMarcado. Very much anticipating with it being a 1 QB league, taking a running back with either I have the 110 and now the 109. So I'll take a running back there, probably Trey Benson.
Give me that trade one more time, Dan.
Yeah. So it was Kyler Murray and Zamir White I am sending, and it's a 1 QB league. And then I'm getting back Kirk Cousins, the 109, and a 2025.
I don't know what happened. I think that's an awful trade for you, Dan.
Yeah, I don't like that.
No, I think most people are going to agree with that. I think objectively, I do lose the trade because I like Zamir White a lot. But I have Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, now Kirk Cousins. I have the 109, 110. I'm planning to get younger at running back. And I don't, as much as I like Zamir White right now, I don't think he's the long-term answer in Las Vegas. I think that they are going to find better running back talent. And this is one of the things I kind of learned from the past few years. Last year, I remember feeling set in my Dynasty League. I had Nick Chubb, David Montgomery. At the time, Cam Akers looked like he was going to be the lead guy in his role. J.K. Dobbins looked like he's on the road to recovery, still young from his injury. Gus Edwards, a couple other backup guys on my roster. I was just like, I have decent depth and good top-end talent.
For me, it's not even about the running back. You said you have Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, and who's the other quarterback?
Baker Mayfield.
Okay. Baker Mayfield. I would take Kyler Murray, and especially in a one quarterback where we're really looking for that premium top 10 guy. I think giving up Kyler Murray is the mistake there.
So it's a 4-point passing touchdown league, and my plan is we still have our rookie draft coming up in this league. So I'm planning to go and get Michael Penix in the 3rd round because he's going to drop. Maybe if I feel like a team's going to come up and get him, I trade my 3rd round pick plus a player to get up.
You're not getting Penix in the 3rd. I hate to tell you, you're not going to get Penix in the 3rd. It's a 16-man league.
Where are you at? 1 and 7 and 9?
I have the 9 and 10 in that league, then the 3rd round, 3-10 and 4-10.
I would package 9 and 10 for Jaden Daniels, and he's probably going in a one quarterback league around 6 or 7.
I don't know. I just personally feel like I'm going to try to go find Sam Howell to pair up with Geno Smith. I think I will have the future at that quarterback position on the cheap and guys that have tons of options around them. I think that Michael Penix is in a similar situation. I'm going to trade up to try to buy him low. Then I'll have Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. I'll probably try to trade Baker away in order to get, somebody else. It's a 1 QB league. Really only need 1 QB room locked up with a solid backup. Because it's 1 QB league, this is even in a 1 QB league, this is about the lowest I would trade Kyler Murray away. I have Kyler Murray in another league. Probably shouldn't make a difference in, what you make trade for. But I do think that with the 109 and 110 in a league where my bench is pretty shallow, so starting lineup right now that after the trade, Kirk Cousins, Saquon Barkley, David Montgomery, T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, Evan Ingram, Terry McLaurin. Second flex is very weak at this point with, a mix of Donovan Peoples-Jones or Cedric Tillman. That'll be replaced in the draft. And then it's an IDP league, so Daniil Hunter and Nick Bolton. The bench is super shallow. I would like to bulk up my bench because I really think that is where we're going to see some type of return in a league like this, in a 16-team league where most guys don't have any bench space. I feel like this is one of those leagues where I could see maybe I have Kyler Murray and I end up finishing top 3. I get a little bit of a payout.
So
I think that I'm looking for the long.
I think this is very important and I think this is we've got a good amount of listeners left. I think this is important to talk about. I know I've brought it up before. So 109 is what you gained, and 110 is what you had already. In a one quarterback league, give me your best case scenario. What are you getting with those two picks? Because picks can be abstract, but what are the players that you think you can get with those two picks in a one quarterback league?
You might
Yeah,
be
I
able to
think
get May. You might be able to get May.
Yeah, so it's a one QB, so quarterbacks will drop.
Yeah.
I again plan on trying to pair up Penix with Kirk Cousins, even in a 16-team league. I think I can get him at if he goes at his earliest spot. I think that he'll go maybe mid-second in a 16-team league.
Yeah.
That's like the 24th pick, which would have been right at that 2-3 spot in a 12-man league. I could definitely trade back from my 110, grab. I think Trey Benson will still be there at 109. It's like
Probably.
No, I don't.
if we're talking it through, there's a
maybe
chance that I don't take any quarterback. Try to fix that in the future again because the
You
one
have,
QB
you have
league.
something to fall back. You have decent QBs right now. You do.
Right, like Kirk, Geno, and Baker will get me by this year. One
absolutely.
QB league.
In a one
Dude,
QB league,
between the three, one of them's going to be starting
Yes.
all year round.
Yes. You will
maybe,
always have
yes,
starting.
but I don't know
Who's
that.
replacing Baker?
I feel
No.
like, honestly, in a one QB league, and I know that Superflex is designed to make quarterbacks more important, but to me, just what I've seen in a one QB league, it's much more important to have that top 8 guy to win because Superflex spreads out your talent. I think it's much easier to win a Superflex with 2 top 16 guys than it is to win a one QB league with the QB 12. And maybe I'm way off there, but to me,
I don't know. Just to me, it feels more similar to like a redraft style where you can go out and get quarterbacks that will have a similar output, especially when, I do think that as much as we were talking up Sam Howell earlier, I do think at most Sam Howell starts maybe 40% of the games this year. I think they ride Geno until it's a problem, and maybe they need to see what they can get out of the younger guy. I think if they're competing, that they're going to stay with Geno Smith unless he's a true problem. Baker's not going anywhere, no competition there. Kirk Cousins got an absolute bag. I really couldn't see him outside of injury going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I like the talent on the team, even though it's top heavy with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I still think that he's going to be able to put up numbers with those guys. Bijan out the backfield. I like the situation for this team to make this trade. Again, I led up top. Objectively, I get it. I don't. If I post this on Twitter, most people are going to roast me, whatever. But it's all context. And I think right now for my team, I would rather try to get young at other important positions, specifically running back, with only having Saquon and David Montgomery. I love Saquon. I think I would need a haul to trade Saquon, but he is 27. If he's not 27, he's going to hit 27 by halfway through the year. And David Montgomery is at best the 1B in an offense where he's not going to be the guy that gets chunk plays, just maybe touchdowns here and there. So trading Zamir White was the harder part of that for me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to get a first back
that
packaged in Zamir. And I've just seen it enough where guys that feel like they have all the hope behind him, either injuries, they add a guy, maybe the workload wasn't quite what we thought it would be. And then overall, they're riding with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. I don't know if this offense has what it takes to get into the red zone as frequently as we want them to.
Yeah, if I would have done that trade if I take away the second and Zamir White, and that's a good trade.
Yeah, and he was offering Kirk Cousins 3 second-round picks for Kyler Murray, but it's a 16-team league. So the best a second-round pick is the 17th. That's a mid-second. I'd much rather have the 109 than 2 or maybe even 3 picks at 17th overall. So, all right, you guys.
We're different.
I think we did the damn thing here. We touched on a lot of different topics today. You know, I say let's close this one out. We can return next week with some tight ends, maybe some more trash talk for another random state. Comment with what state you want us to shit on.
Yeah, I got more. I got more
Yeah.
Southern logic for you too. So
Hey,
don't worry.
fuck
There you go.
Ohio.
More Southern logic.
Fuck Ohio.
Comment all those. You know, why does some state suck? And that's what we'll hit next week after hours.
All right.
That's our outro. Have some fun this week. Get after it. It's summertime, baby. Let's go. All right.
Wakanda forever.
Yeah, I'll do. Yeah. Wakanda forever. Fuck yeah.